My name is Kristen. I am the Youth Engagement and Events Coordinator here at First Work. I will be your host and moderator for today's event. This is our last event before we pivot into the summer months, so we're really excited to have our amazing speakers here with us today. For those of you who haven't yet attended an Aspire event before, Aspire is our career exploration initiative put on by the team here at First Work. We understand how difficult it can be to really figure out what job opportunities are out there and where they can take you in terms of getting a career. So exploration is really important because you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we put on these exploration type of events so that young people can really figure out, what opportunities are out there for not only paying the bills, but maybe even finding a passion in getting a job. Aspire is funded by RBC Future Launch, and so our $50 gift cards are courtesy of their support. In order to be included in the draw to win, you must complete the event survey. More details will be provided later today. Send a screenshot, and you must be present during the announcement in order to receive your prize. Lastly, for those interested, you will be getting your LinkedIn Learning access after today's event. Before we officially get started, I want to pass things along to Sophia, our communications manager, to start with our land acknowledgement, as our virtual meeting is on treaty lands.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and with the horrors of the residential schools resurfacing so much lately, I think it's important for us as allies to take on this responsibility for how our stories are written down and what will be written down in the years to come. So before we begin, we humbly acknowledge that we are on treaty lands. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water originally inhabited by Indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni, Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth and for the resources we are using and honor all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since time immemorial. Just to add that this Indigenous Peoples Day, we affirm our solidarity with Indigenous peoples and their struggle for rights across Turtle Island and recognize the resilience and labor of Indigenous activists and community members leading the way in the fight for justice. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia, for starting us off. And without further ado, enough of me. I'd like to give a warm welcome to the panelists that we have here today. We have a full panel here. We have Selena McCallum from Hungry Eyes Media and Street Voices, Ali Harvey from Artreach, Brittany Chandler from Hot Dog Cinemas, Kyle Hodges from Real Canada, and Jesse Anthony from Pass Through Productions. Welcome, everyone. To our speakers, I'd like to give a chance for each of you to take a quick minute or two to introduce yourselves, the work that you do, where you work, how you got your foot into the industry, and also tell us your latest TV or film guilty pleasure. I guess we can start with Brittany.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here today. My name is Brittany Chandler. I'm the operations manager at Hot Docs, which runs an annual festival celebrating the art form of documentary. And we also run a year-round cinema. I'll get in, further into this and what an operations manager does, but I basically, make sure everything's on track and everything essentially does what we say it's supposed to do. I got my foot in the door actually at Hot Docs. I originally worked as a volunteer training of over 800 volunteers to run our festival each year. And guilty pleasure, I used the pandemic to really just dive into the Real Housewives universe and see what that's all about, because that's something that I never watched before, and I'm deeply invested in the New York Housewives at the moment.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Can't wait to hear more about your story and your journey. Allie, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, I'm Allie Harvey. I am the program manager at Outreach. Outreach is an arts organization, community-based. We provide grants for community arts programming, run workshops, provide mentorship, connect folks to resources. Bit of a black sheep here because I'm not technically in the TV and film industry. I'm more in the community arts industry, the funding sector, that kind of side of this work. So just wanted to throw that disclaimer out here. I started in this sector as an intern and just stuck with it, got hired on, and I'm lucky enough to be here still 10 years later. Guilty pleasure forever will always be rom-coms. Netflix has 1,000 of them. The Holiday, Someone Great, Always Be My Maybe, all of it. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Love it. Selena.
Hi, my name is Selena. I am a filmmaker and social media manager from Toronto, Ontario. I'd say that I'm also a photographer and videographer, and my guilty pleasure of for TV shows and movies, I definitely have to say any type of documentary, as I love documentary filmmaking. And I'm also from Street Voices and Hungry Eyes Media, which I'm really looking forward to get more into that after.
Great. Jesse, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. Sego Swagwego. My name's Jesse Anthony. I'm from the Onondaga Nation Beaver Clan from 6 Nations of the Grand River Territory in Ontario, but I currently live, work, play, and create on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, which is also known as Vancouver, where I have my production company called Pass Through Productions. I've only been out of school, so I went to school at Capilano University for the Indigenous Independent Filmmaking program, which laddered over into the Motion Pictures Art program, got my degree, and I've only been out of school for 2 years. And I have successfully released a feature film titled Brother I Cry with Talent to Watch Canada, and recently just released a web series which I produced through our company called Queerenza, which is on APTN Lumi, and it's the first Indigenous queer love story. So check it out. The first month is free. But yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I've done it kind of all, and I can answer any questions later. I'm just super happy to be here. My cat's knocking things off the table, so you'll see him in here. But it's really nice to be here today. Thank you.
All right, great. And finish this off, Kyle.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle Hodges. I'm from Northern Ontario, and I work in the film industry as a prop master and set dresser extraordinaire. I got my first gig right out of college as a set dresser, and the ball's been rolling for about 4 or 5 years now. I'd say one of my guilty pleasures right now is campy 80s, 70s movies. They always hold a very warm place in my heart. And yeah, really excited to be here.
Awesome. So I want to say to our panelists, thank you all for participating in today's discussion. To kick off our panel discussion, I want to open the first question up to all of our speakers. So our audience today are young people seeking opportunity in the TV and film industry and considering the different job pathways that fit their unique passions. What is the best way to get your foot into the door within this industry, especially if you don't have any formal education? Maybe Selena, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the best way to get your foot in the door is to start off by volunteering and networking. I'd say that the first time that I really learned more about the film industry and what that looks like is by really asking for opportunities and making that first step in that approach. So for example, with Street Voices, I met Joel at an open mic in Scarborough, and he was selling his magazine. So Street Voices, first of all, is a multimedia platform. We started off as a magazine and have now transitioned more into social media platform as well as a, um, I guess, media and trying to develop series as well right now and a podcast. So I met Joel 5 years ago and I've been at Street Voices ever since. And that was just by me walking up to him and asking if there's any opportunities for me to write, whether there's honorariums or not. And I know that with us, we tend to want to find things that, of course, are paid opportunities. But I always say to keep your eye on the bigger picture and know that in volunteering, you're investing in yourself.
That's great. Kyle, if you'd like to answer that question next.
Yeah, absolutely. With the given pandemic that's happened, things have gotten a lot more digital. So on top of just approaching people in person, there's also a lot of online opportunities. There's a few websites, even on Facebook. There are places you can just search that are just looking for any number of crew positions to be filled. And just kind of throwing your name out there and saying, hey, I'm really interested in the film industry. I think it's a really cool place to work. I've never done anything, but I'm willing to learn. And if you go in it with an open mindset and kind of take the experiences that are given to you when you're on the job, you can literally just create a career from just having that work ethic and have no sort of educational background at all.
That's great. You've mentioned some opportunities online. It would be great if you can pop any of that like into the chat for our viewers to access. Great. Brittany, if you can kind of go next. I know you're going to provide a unique perspective.
Thank you. I mean, I will kind of echo what Selena was saying about volunteering. When my personal work background was, I moved to Toronto for school. While I was in school, obviously I was a student, I didn't have any money and I wanted to be able to do things in Toronto. And so I discovered volunteering for film festivals. And I had heard that if you volunteer for TIFF, for every shift you volunteer, you get like a free ticket to see something. So that's kind of, to be totally honest, like that was my initial, being, 17 or 18 years old, that was my initial pull towards that industry, was just like, oh, free movies. But as I did volunteer and spent time around film festivals, I really developed a real love for film festivals and events around the arts. And I just got really hooked on it. I started seeing what other film festivals are in Toronto and what kind of volunteer opportunities that they had. I realized that it's a relatively small industry, so everywhere I went, I was seeing familiar faces. And I loved that community, and I also got to be present and learn a ton about the industry and how it works and why we have film festivals and what needs to happen to pull these things off. So definitely volunteering was a huge thing for me when I was a student, and it also is relatively low commitment. Like TIFF runs for about 2 weeks, and you only really have to do like 3 shifts, and the shifts tend to be like 3-4 hours. So I don't love it when volunteers kind of get asked to take on massive amounts of work for no pay. But I think for a lot of film festivals, you can still manage it well if you're working, even if you're working a part-time job plus being a student, or if you're working a full-time job, you can still kind of squeeze these volunteer shifts in and be able to get that like exposure to people that you could be working with in the future, and also exposure to just the events and the industry in general.
Awesome. That's great. Jesse, would love to hear your perspective on how to get into the industry as well.
Yeah, sure. Actually, everything that was just said is very spot on. I started in theater. I wanted to be an actor, so I started with like classical theater training, theater stage, and so I did volunteer. And yeah, lots of volunteer. But moving into the film industry, there's a lot of mentorships available as well. And I think that those are really important. And having, being okay with just sending an email, reaching out to somebody and saying, I would just love to help in any way that I can. We try our best at, I know a lot of filmmakers try their best to not have to have people come out and volunteer these days. It's like some sort of honorarium, or feed you really well. So there are some changes to helping create space so that if you are just wanting to get a taste of what the film industry is, there's space for that. But yeah, it's really work ethic, showing up on time, being reliable. Having a driver's license in the film industry is key. I'll tell you that right now. That alone could get you the job other than somebody who doesn't have a driver's license. I just want to put that out there. I know not everybody is able to do that, but it is something that if you are, I highly encourage that. But yeah, really the way I got in was I just said yes to whatever opportunity was available. Whenever I applied for something, there was a couple of mentorships with NBCU where three or four of us were applying, and I really was like, I'm just gonna apply. I don't know if I know anything, but I'm gonna apply. And I just happened to be able to get in there and get my foot in there and meet people and work in different departments. And that's when I realized I liked being an assistant director. And there's not many people who like to be assistant directors. And so then I was able to get other jobs based on that. So yeah, don't be afraid to shoot an email, introduce yourself, and just say exactly what it is you're looking for. And if you don't know, say, I really don't know. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's great. Really, really great story. Ali, if you want to be able to provide some insight as well on maybe how to get how one can get their foot into the door within the TV and film industry or in the arts industry as a whole.
For sure. Actually, I was going to say community arts programming. There's a good amount of it out there. We fund every year different film projects, and it's maybe screenwriting 101 for youth or walking youth how to make a I don't know, short film on an iPhone, something like that. Like there's a lot of community-based arts programming out there that can get you some 101, at least start, if it can't get you into the industry, it can at least start building up your resume, your portfolio, kind of pieces like that. So I'd always say, keep an eye on community arts programming. It's free. Usually there's an honorarium provided, pieces like that.
Great. I want to start off with some individual questions right now. Selena, for you, I think our audience maybe can probably relate to you the most, being a young person working, multiple gigs to feed your creative spirit. You started your job in film production in a film production studio during the pandemic. What was it like starting within this industry, especially at a chaotic time like this?
So yes, I am. So I graduated from the University of Windsor in 2019 and I started working in the film industry as soon as I moved back to Toronto. And that experience was really fun and really let me pick up skills that I think I needed now today into learning what I needed to do, I guess, in the film industry. And from from that, it was a lot of like referrals as well as to getting into the job that I have now at Hungry Eyes Media. So I started working there in December. So I've been there for 7 months now. And working at an office, it was very different because I wasn't really able to get to know my boss and my coworkers really well as we had to work from home. So knowing that and then trying to communicate and understand the language, the tone, things that are different from my last job to this job. I felt like that was a challenge, but it was something that we overcame. As a production company is really small, so sometimes I was able to go in, especially if it was just the 2 or 3 of us in the office. And I'd say that like even in the pandemic, there was films are still going on, people are still shooting, people are still developing right now their ideas either for their documentary or their series. So that's a good thing that the film industry hasn't stopped during all of this chaos that has been going on. So I think that was really a benefit and also helped me get this job too and working there.
That's great. Brittany, you have a lot of experience in working for film festivals and, you know, large scale events. There are a lot of opportunities in this industry that kind of fall outside of that green screen, so to speak. What are some career paths for those who don't want to work in the TV, who want to work in the TV and film industry, sorry, but not on set or in production?
Yeah, the film festival industry and in general the arts event industry is massively important for the arts because it basically is bringing the art form to the people, in a sense. So essentially, what film festivals tend to function as is there's the public facing side of things, which is, you know, bringing films to people, hosting Q&As and maybe events around the films. And then there's a whole industry side as well that the public generally doesn't see. Hot Docs, for example, hosts a conference where documentary filmmakers and producers will fly in, well, on a normal year, would fly in from everywhere around the world to get to meet each other, you know, have panel discussions. We also set up pitch meetings for filmmakers to be able to pitch their ideas or maybe their films that are in progress to producers. And we also raise a lot of money to fund these projects, these pitches as well. So it's kind of like an iceberg. Like there's a massive amount of things that film festivals do that's kind of below the surface. So in terms of like different types of career paths that are offered through this industry, you know, I'm in the operations path. So as I said earlier, that's kind of the people who work out the logistics of how to get everything done. So, you know, we plan the screening schedule, we recruit and train and schedule staff to make all of those things run, box office operations to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can for those films to sell out and to get the butts in the seats, as it were, and just the theater operations in general, making sure it all runs really smoothly. And then other career paths within the industry would be programming is one that's really popular. So that's the people who essentially decide what is going to be shown at the film festival. So our programming team watches films. We have a lot of open submissions, and there's people have to watch every single film that gets submitted for consideration at our festival and decide, okay, like these ones are the ones that we want to include in our festival. You know, when you get more advanced in a programming career, you can actually go to film festivals around the world, watch films that are showing in, say, like Sundance or Berlin, and say like, okay, we need that film to come to our festival, and kind of talking to the filmmakers and or distributors to negotiate that. So that's a really exciting career if you think if you have like great kind of curatorial taste. So that's a really popular one. If you're a good like salesperson, like if you are good at selling yourself, if you're good at like selling some other people, you're not like a shy person, then development and sponsorship is a really great path as well. These are the people who essentially approach very rich people and large corporations and ask them for money. So if you're not shy about asking people for money, which I very much am, I can't do that job at all, but I'm completely in awe of the people who work in our sponsorship and programming or sponsorship and development departments who do a great job approaching individuals and companies and get our festivals funded every year. And I mean, I could probably talk for much longer about like a lot of different, there's tech, obviously, you know, putting on the Q&As and obviously the projectionists. And I mean, yeah, there's tons of other kind of jobs in the film festival industry, but I hope that kind of gives you a sense of like the many different ones that you could pursue.
Yeah, that definitely provides more insight onto the different opportunities available when it comes to operations. That's great. Kyle, I want to pivot this next question to you, as props master isn't a job title we hear about every day. So this question is basically, the industry is known to be very contract based. How can someone turn that into a viable, livable career over the long term? And is it possible?
Absolutely. The film industry is very much a gig work kind of industry where you go from one show to the other. And part of the job is making sure you have another show lined up. And sometimes it doesn't line up one after the other. There are some breaks in between. But the nice thing about the industry is that you're paid a lot, very fast, and it kind of gives you enough to live off of during those lull periods. And I'd say that it's probably best to just kind of make a good impression. Where I'm from in the Northern Ontario film industry, it's a lot of word of mouth as well as your resume speaking. So if you make a good impression, if you work really hard and you come into work every day with a positive attitude, and even on your bad days, you push through those negative thoughts and give that kind of positive vibe to the whole crew that everyone else can kind of leech off of, people will notice you. And when it comes to the next show that's coming in around the corner, someone will definitely throw your name into the raffle to be called in for the next show. So I'd say, yeah, just having a good work ethic and just being a really kind person, you can really go a long way in this industry because people will want to work with you if you're nice.
Really great. Thank you. Ali, you've touched upon a really great point. So Artreach has funded so many art, but also filming projects by youth this past year. I think one was named ECRU, a virtual concept development program for Pan-Asian photographers and filmmakers aged 18 to 29 across the GTA with no formal training. When it comes to other youth who are looking for grants and proposals for their work, what does your organization look for?
Kind of three different pieces. One is a clear vision, you knowing what you want to do and saying just that. I was just helping somebody with an application to Canada Council for the Art for their film. I read their first draft, and at the end of it, I didn't know what their movie was about. So knowing what you're doing and saying exactly that, kind of writing clearly, writing concisely, answering questions directly, I should be able to read a grant and be able to close my eyes and just envision your project. I should know what it looks like, maybe on a day-to-day basis, or even a step back, just the overall vibe of the project, the content, kind of what you're aiming to do. So just being really clear in your writing. Another piece is we're in community arts. So we have funding for programs with participants, making sure that the programs are actually rooted in need, that the community wants this project, needs the program, that it fills a gap. I would say the same would be true kind of for film and TV. What makes your project different? Will people actually want to watch what you're making? So making sure that it's really clear that you're making work that is rooted in what your audience wants to see and what the people who are consuming what you're creating are looking for. Sorry, I have a puppy and she's very barky today. So if you can hear that, that's just her, I'm sorry. And I think the third piece for grant packages is having a cohesive package. So you're gonna write a grant application, you're gonna have maybe some samples of work, you're gonna have a budget. All of those things should tell one story about you, your work. If you have a budget that speaks to all of these expenses that aren't mentioned at all in your application, it kind of creates a disconnect, and the people reviewing your grant will just look at that and think that maybe you're not as prepared as you should be. Maybe you're not as detail oriented as you should be. So when you're writing these grant proposals, making sure that kind of the whole thing is one cohesive package, telling one single story about what you're working on.
Awesome. That's great. I have one follow-up question from that. So anything that's basically artistic or creative can be translated into film. Can you tell us about some of the opportunities made possible by Artreach's granting opportunities?
Yeah, like some of the projects we funded around film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, this year alone, we just finished our granting round, just announced our grantees. We've got ECRU, which is who you mentioned already. That's the concept development program. We funded Color Your Life, which is teaching Black youth 14 to 18, I think is the age range, about screenwriting and developing just a full script that's ready to go by the end of the project. The Flaunt It movement is doing a creative internship, so kind of teaching the basics around kind of more the admin side of film, because you have your doers, but you have your planners as well. So kind of prepping you to be able to do that. And the last one, I think, was the Video Tour Collective this year, who is actually making a short film, low budget, which is kind of the projects that we fund. And they're bringing youth on for both workshops and then mentoring on set, so that youth by the end of it have a film credit to their names and know all of the back end and front end of what it takes to make a short film.
That's great. And last but not least, I want to ask this next question to Jesse. This question is, sorry. The BIPOC community as a whole is not effectively represented on TV and film. We've seen Canadian success in Kim's Convenience and Schitt's Creek. When are we going to see the Indigenous Kim's Convenience? Is this the next step that we will and should see in Indigenous representation and in TV and film?
This is such a loaded question. Because, you know, right now there are a lot of amazing Indigenous projects in development. And the thing is, we can get to development, but can we get greenlit into production? And that's what I want to see, is more things in production, which is happening. Like, it's happening, but it's 2021, we're almost 2022. It should have been happening years and years and years ago. So it's like, yes, there's a lot of great stuff coming, which means not only is there more content, there are more acting, you know, there's more roles for actors. There are more, you know, a lot of the productions, whether you're indie, a lot of indie productions are making capacity for BIPOC diversity in the service industry and in the, you know, the whole filmmaking process, right from conception to release. So yes, I'm so optimistic, and I feel so great with all of the opportunities that are happening, especially Indigenous storytellers in writers' rooms. And again, there still needs to be more people, more BIPOC people in these positions, show running positions, you know. So I'm huge on you know, really pushing that and getting people in key department head positions and them running the team. You know, it's a different dynamic. We just had, like I said, I just went into production during COVID in November with Querencia, and in my company, it's a goal that, you know, we hire as many Indigenous, BIPOC, LGBTQ, like in the queer community on the project. And it was the first time where people came up to myself and the creator, Mary Galloway, and said, I felt safe. This is the first time I felt safe. And I was able to authentically be myself on set. And we looked around, there was no non-Indigenous people, non-BIPOC people in key department, you know, head roles. Yeah, so there is a difference when you apply these to the community, and which offers more jobs. And just, yeah, I'm rambling, but I can just go on. I'm so passionate about filmmaking and making room and being a voice and advocate and owning the space. And I think that's the biggest thing, is saying you have every right to be there, own the space, show up, you know. Oh, that's the biggest thing. And I wish I had that growing up, somebody saying, you deserve to be here and you can own this space. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that an acting teacher said, you know, do it again, own the space, do it again, own the space. So that is what we are doing. We are owning the space, and everybody knows that you know, the Michelle Latimer stuff that had happened has caused a huge ripples and sadness and heartbreak within not only the film industry, but within our Indigenous communities. And it's bringing forward change. And, you know, I always try to look at the positive of what it's doing. And it is shaking up the nation to say, like, our stories. They want BIPOC stories, the original stories, and they and I say they aren't the right people to tell them, because then they're not executing it properly. So I'm just going to put in the chat here 3 things I always ask myself when creating a project or jumping on a project, and that's why am I telling this story? Who am I telling it for? And am I the right person to be telling it? So I just want to offer that to you when getting on a project, really looking at not just the immediate effect of what the project is, but also the long-term effect of what the project is. So yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. I'm like ADD and you gotta tell me to like bring it back. So
no, that's great. A bit of a follow-up question. And first of all, great 3 questions. I think that cannot only be applied in TV and film, but like any sort of work that you do, really.
Yes.
A follow-up question is, how can we as artists and audience members support the move to green lighting production?
That's a really great question. I don't know if I have a direct answer for that, but I would say is being cautious of or conscious of what we're watching. You know, what are we watching? You know, I love that Netflix has a world cinema part where I'm watching, you know, things from Kenya. I'm watching things from Dubai. I'm starting to watch other feature films from around the world, and being absorbed, you know, into these worlds that I don't get to see on a daily basis. And so that's the thing. I'm kind of staying away from, you know, Gossip Girl, and I'm trying to think of other very unbipoc shows, which is like, you know, Friends and things, and, you know, moving towards, yeah, I would say call up your broadcaster. I don't know if I can say that or not, but I think it's being involved, consciously being involved in those changes, those social changes. But also it's not just about, it's about collaboration too. I'm not saying not to collaborate. That's the biggest thing is, yeah, make room, but let's collaborate. How do we get to a place of unity? How do we get to a place of allyship? How do we, you know, tell stories together, and rightfully so, support each other, right? So I always use my traditional upbringing of the 2-row wampum, and I posted it today on my Instagram about, you know, treaties, and I can only walk this life in the traditions I know, and so that 2-row wampum, I apply it to my creativity, I apply it to my everyday life, my work ethic, my relationships with friends and family, and that's that, you know, I travel in my canoe, you travel in your ship, and we never interfere in how we go on the river together. We go side by side. And so, you know, there's a lot of teachings within that wampum. So yeah, I would say, long story short, just being very cautious of what it is we're watching, and fighting for more diverse voices and people in the industry.
Awesome. That's really important. Not only seeing, you know, what work I can do, but like how I can also support the industry. I think that's important for all viewers. I want to be able to open the floor to, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to throw one more thing. It came to me, also sharing each other's content. That's the other thing that is huge. Like, not just promoting yourself, but saying, oh my God, there's really great BIPOC TV stuff that's happening here. There's some awesome projects happening here, and really sharing them on your social medias, and, you know, really, and tagging everybody you know, just so that they're like, it's aware and it's on their radar. That's another way to start making change in the industry that way. So, okay, I'm done.
All good. I want to open the floor up to our audience, and I know that some of you have a lot of questions as well. Feel free to unmute yourself, type it into the chat. I want to provide you guys an opportunity as well to ask any questions you have for our panelists. Yeah. Oh, I think Kadia, is that right? I'm not sure if you want to. Yep, there you go.
Yes, I was trying to figure out how. So I was just wondering, I know you guys said to volunteer and do stuff like that if you want to get into the industry. Um, in terms of getting hired on as like a full-time staff, let's say, how much experience would you need in terms of that? Or yeah.
Zero. I've seen so many people get full-time jobs who have had zero experience. It's all dependent on the keys who are hiring the crew in a sense of the onset stuff. And it's up to them whether they want to take the chance to bring on someone completely green. From personal experience, right now I'm on a show as an electric in the lighting crew, and I've never done lighting before. I have zero experience in it, and the gaffer took an opportunity to bring me on and teach me and mentor me about some stuff, and I've learned a lot within the last couple of weeks that I've been working on it. So yeah, I don't think you need too much experience, just as long as you can find the right person that will bring you on and teach you the ways, and take the time in educating you on how whichever department you're brought on to works.
Thank you.
Your hand is raised. Anne?
Hi. So I know you guys have like different specialties when it comes to like working in TV and film, but as somebody who's kind of been in writing, not specifically screenwriting, how would I go about breaking through that? Like, where do I start? I have experience in like a non-fiction creative writing, but I do want to delve more into the screenwriting portion because yeah.
I guess I can jump in on that. As a screenwriter, writing every day. I'm not sure if you know about Caltex, I believe it is, a free online software that can help you with the structure of screenwriting. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. And then eventually, there's subsidy programs too, where you might be able to get final draft, which is what I know I use for writing. People use different programs. And always writing, like setting up time, at least a half an hour to an hour a day of just practicing writing, but researching too. The CFC has a writing, I believe, a writing program, Pacific Screenwriters Program in BC. That's the one I went through. It's highly competitive, very much so, but I would say start by writing short films, mastering how to tell a story in 3 pages, and then get out and shoot it on your iPhone, but just constantly writing and finding filmmakers that can bring your work to life. And then you start to build your reel. You start to build something to say, okay, this is what I've written. And then once you have a couple of short films and even mastering it, you can try a feature film. I guess you have to kind of figure out what you like to write too. I don't think there's a limit on only horror, only drama, or whatever. I think you write whatever you want. You're a storyteller. And then finding an agent and sharing your work. And I think that's the thing, is sometimes we're scared to share our work because we're going to be our biggest critics. But finding another screenwriter and saying, do you mind reading my work? And being very open to being collaborative, being open to reworking it. I'm actually taking a dose of my own medicine right now. So it's like that, going back to it. And then it is getting it in front of getting in front of people. And then your community gets to know, like, okay, yes, Anne is writing, look at the things that she's writing, here they are. And that's, yeah, eventually something will happen. And that's what I want to say to everybody. If you're going to get into the film industry in whatever position, like, the things will happen for you. If you're consistent, if you, like Kyle was saying, your work ethic, the volunteer work, things will happen for you. It will move along. Yeah, that's my advice.
I'd also say too, there's I'm sure you guys have all heard of it, Lift in Toronto, the Liaison of Independent Filmmakers of Toronto. They teach so many workshops, and they have an introduction to screenwriting. They have different levels, intermediary, things like that. It is fairly affordable for how much instruction they provide and access to networks and expertise and stuff. If accessing paid workshops, pieces like that are inaccessible, there's grants that you can get through Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, Canada Council for the Arts that are specifically for artists looking to build professional development. So if you have some courses in mind, you just put together a quick proposal and you can potentially get a grant to cover the cost of any professional development workshops or training, school, things like that that you want to engage in.
Really, really great. A lot of resources available. I have one quick question, great question in the chat. Other than going to school for film, TV, and volunteering, what online resources would you suggest? Instagram or YouTube or any other online resources that you can mention?
I'd say Skillshare is a good one. There's also a paid thing called Masterclass where a couple of like high-end like AAA like filmmakers kind of or film industry veterans kind of have their own classes on how they do their work. Those are some pretty good resources if you want to learn from like I think it's Hans Zimmer as like a music composer for film. I think Christopher Nolan has something on writing, like a few things like that. If you want to look into that kind of stuff, yeah. And YouTube's a good start as well. There's probably tons and tons and tons of content with amateur and independent filmmakers doing some stuff. I know if a few filmmakers came from YouTube. I know Bo Burnham started on like Vine and Instagram, and he ended up doing comedy, and his new special right now on Netflix. He also made a film called Eighth Grade, so there's a start there. You can probably find a lot of resources on YouTube as well.
That's great. And I also want to mention to everyone as well, we will be providing attendees with LinkedIn Learning access. There are a couple of learning pathways as well. So you'll be able to check that out once you get your access later today. I know Samantha had a really great question. I want to allow opportunity for you to ask.
Hi everyone, my question is, can any one of the panelists provide insights of HR rules in the industry? I know Brittany mentioned a few, but I just wanted to get some more information or insights on HR rules in the industry.
Sorry, just so I understand the question, like different HR.
Yes, human resources rules in the industry, like inside.
Okay.
All that.
I would say that if you're interested in getting into HR specifically, sometimes in arts organizations, the smaller the organization, the less likely there is going to be an official HR department. But sometimes you can, if you can get involved with maybe an HR company that like can contract out like HR people to like help industries part-time. That's something like for a lot of the smaller industries, there'll be like an HR manager that works with them as well as like several other industries or several other organizations. So I would say that, and that is kind of like a little bit of an issue with like arts organizations, is that when they're small, there's no HR, and it tends to be until they're like at a really high level that there's a full-time HR person. But in terms of HR on set, that's something that maybe someone else can speak to.
I can attest to that. We at the start of each show, we sign a deal memo, and within that deal memo, there is a long list of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and also harassment and a bunch of different policies that are very, very strict and enforced on set. So, and you actually have to sign that, agreeing to it. So if you, in any sort of way, do any sort of harassment, physical violence, discriminatory, anything like that, you're out. You're out of the show. You're not going to get a call back because no one's going to want to work with you if you're that kind of harassment kind of person. There's also crew members who work their regular crew job are also there's also health and there's also a safety rep, a harassment rep, and those are just like average crew people, but those are the people you go and talk to on set if you're experiencing any sort of harassment on the show. You can even, there's not an HR department, so to speak, but production itself does facilitate and does take those allegations very seriously. There will be investigations, there will be conversations with the people involved, a whole bunch of stuff. Even there's even like repercussions for actions outside of the workplace while you're under contract. I've seen some people get into bar fights or fist fights outside of work, but they're on a show, and that's been reported to production. And if like any sort of way you reflect yourself outside, you're also reflecting the show you're on. So that can be also pretty bad for that person. Even if you're a unionized member of like IATSE or NABIT or whatever, there's been like signs of someone like you'll even get kicked out of the union if you're even caught or doing any sort of that kind of stuff. So while on set, there's some we're very serious about that kind of stuff, and yeah, you sign a contract with a lot of harassment outlines that you cannot do. It's the do's and don'ts. And yeah, and if you break those rules, you're out of the show. You're fired.
I also
sorry, Jesse, go.
want to add to that. Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. Being an assistant director, you know, one of my jobs is safety in the workplace, on-set safety, making sure that, you know, these things are here and being a safe place for somebody to be able to approach and say, you know, I don't feel comfortable doing this. And it's not, you know, there's the safety comfortability, but there's also, I don't feel comfortable working with this person. I've had somebody walk straight off set because they just, you know, somebody wasn't putting up lights properly and they kept telling them this isn't right. There was an altercation and this person said, I'm done, I'm gone, and they left. So now, you know, there's people managing, there's ways of working around that. But there are some, you know, there are unwritten rules from department to department. You know, you never touch another department's equipment. You don't go on set and move props and touch props and move things around. You don't set your cups on the camera cart. There's a lot of housekeeping that happens on set as well. And it's you know, you don't plug things in without asking the electrics. So there are rules that at the top of the day, and I work in indie a lot. I'm more of an indie filmmaker, which means we're not under unions. I'm not on a high scale paying production, so we might not have those types of departments. So as an indie producer, you know, it is my job to be able to make sure people feel safe on set. It's my job to make sure the information is being given to all of the departments, so that they, you know, to everybody. And at the top of the day, we have something called a safety meeting. And we go through and we offer that time and space for people to talk about particular things that you know, that we have to stay away from. Is there going to be guns on set? You know, if we're working on an action project, then, you know, that in itself takes time to make sure everyone feels safe. So yeah, there are all kinds of little bits and pieces that go to making sure we get through a 8 to 10 hour, maybe sometimes 12-hour day on an indie project, that people have to be you know, very considerate, understanding, and aware. I think that's the thing. It's like being aware of what every department is doing as well, not just your own. And I think that makes a well-rounded filmmaker, knowing what is actually happening in the camera department, knowing what's happening in the prop department or the, you know, production design. So yeah, that's the set safety. But then there's also, you know, at the top of the day, we offer our names, our pronouns. I start with prayer and land acknowledgement on my productions. You know, we offer time and space for smudging to everyone. if we're working on heavy projects, we have elders available for, if people are mentally needing some sort of are needing somebody else to help them through that, we offer those things. So there's, moving forward, I feel like there's been a lot of awareness in taking care of each other on set. And yeah, and then like what Kyle had mentioned in those start packs, don't skim through them, read them all. And that's another thing I have to say is read your contracts, read your deal memos and crew memos, and being kind. That is the biggest thing. Kyle nailed it. When you first started talking, I'm like, yes, the kindness that brings the awareness, and then everybody safely can move on set. So
Really great. I want to provide opportunity for Austin to ask your question as well.
Hello, thank you. I just had a question earlier in the chat. Any specific advice for screenwriters? And also just thank you very much. This has been a very lovely and helpful sort of thing. Thank you.
There was somebody else, I'll kind of tie it in together, because somebody was asking, how do you protect your work? And as a screenwriter, I have a feature film that I wrote. It's based on life experiences. So if you're going to write about your family, or you're going to write about somebody there's things called clearances, life rights, legalities. If you're going to be a screenwriter or a creative, my first thing is get a lawyer. And I know not all of us can afford a lawyer right off the top, but even just to have a consult with a lawyer, or another producer that could help you navigate protecting your work. I did register, I think, on WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America, just so that the copyright for my feature film was there. But technically on computers these days, that's your you've written it, there's a time stamp on it. So most times your ideas are safe that way. I'm not too sure. I've never had to worry about that too much. Television's probably a different beast. I know that we have to sign NDAs, and you can't share anything whatsoever. So there's that. Yes, legal, anything legal. But advice for screenwriters, my biggest thing is just keep writing, those 3 questions that I put in earlier, and get it in front of people. Just ask people for advice.
Also, I do some writing on the side myself. I also like to do like outlines. So instead of just, I know some people just think they get onto like Celtics or Writer's Duet or whichever software, even Word, and just start writing. Sometimes that works for people. Other styles, there's also what I like to do is do a breakdown. I do like kind of like a tree of like events that happen in the set, or that happen in the story. I kind of embellish and write more in depth about characters and kind of give them a brief outline, so I know kind of how to write them when it comes to them interacting with other characters. I do a thing called a story speedometer, and it's kind of a weird way of kind of pacing your story. So like there's events that happen within a story, and they can go from like, a slow pace, and then as it gets to like the peak, we're ramping up to like certain conflicts and resolutions and stuff like that. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to kind of start a story with just the building blocks of how the story is going to go, and giving yourself like a map. So when it comes to actually writing, you're just bulldozing through the writing because you've already had everything else planned out. So all you need to do now is just write it down.
Or also read comic books. Somebody was like, read comic books, because even as an editor or a director, you have to fill in the blanks with comic books, right? So it helps you see the structure.
100% agree with that. Comic books, definitely a huge asset.
I wanted to jump in here and kind of talk about screenwriting for documentaries as well. I see storyboards is a really good idea to have that. When looking at documentaries, you want to know what journey is your character on, and looking at what are the obstacles that they will be facing or that they're trying to overcome. And that's one way you can really lay out what your story kind of entails. So from going from my character starts off at the park And at this location, this is where I'll ask these sorts of questions. And then from there, they're going to be going home. And sorry about the noise, I'm sitting by the window. But yeah, so then, and then going from in the middle where you can have, for example, your person now is going home from the park, and these are the questions that you're going to be asking them. Documentary, I find, is sometimes a fine line for me because you want to keep it as realistic and as in the now as possible, but you also want to think about the cinematic shots that you're going to get to really drive the story and to keep your audience's attention. So in that, with that, I think that comes in with the storyboard. So what types of shots are you getting your character at in the park? Are they going to be sitting on the swing, for example? Or are they going to be going down the slide? And those are things that you can plan and ask your character to do, so that within the documentary, you're really capturing everything from the kind of fiction side of it, but also to the nonfiction side too.
Awesome. We had one great question in the chat, and this is for all speakers. What is one thing each of you wish you would have known when you first got started that would have made getting into this industry a lot easier? Maybe Brittany, if we can start with you.
That's a really interesting question. I think that for myself, I think I did anticipate, because of my like spending time around it with volunteering and things like that. I think I did anticipate a lot of the pitfalls of the industry. Like it's very contract based, doesn't pay super well when you get started out, and just things like that. I think that's something that I would have. I think that's something that maybe I knew this when I was younger, but I needed it drilled into my head a little bit more. Is that you need to ask for what you want, which seems really intuitive, but I think that there's a tremendous value in whether you're volunteering or whether you're in an entry level position, going to your supervisor whenever there's downtime or whenever you have a chance to talk, and just being really clear with your supervisor or whoever why you're there, because there's a lot of reasons that people either volunteer or get like sort of entry level positions, and usually maybe one person is managing a lot of different people, and so unless someone tells you like as a supervisor, unless someone tells you like, hey, I'm here because I want to get into this industry, I want to learn more, unless someone says that to you, you don't really know if they're just here because they want to just have some fun and go to some films, or just like make a quick buck off of a 10-day contract, or whether they really want to get involved and learn more. So it's really important to when you're in those positions to reach out and just say like, hey, just so you know, this is why I'm doing this and I'd love to learn more. And even like I was so nervous when I was at the start of like asking people for like their time, like asking people for like, to have a coffee or something like that after the contract. I was just like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. But now that I'm in the position that I am now, I love to talk about myself, as you can tell, and I love to talk about my work, and just nothing sounds better than getting coffee with someone and talking about my career for 20 minutes or so. But on a serious note, I genuinely do get a lot of joy out of helping people navigate this industry. And I think that I'm not alone in that. So I don't really think it is bothering people when you ask them to talk about themselves. So that's something that maybe I think I had a sense of that when I was younger, that was the case. But I think that I really should have had that should have been a little bit more confident with that idea.
I'm gonna actually add to that, Brittany. It was my showrunner when I was doing the PSP program that said it doesn't hurt to stroke an eagle once in a while, and when asking questions to really ask that person about themselves, because yes, they're gonna want to open up and talk about that their experiences, but also I think, and one thing I wish I knew was that I didn't have to stay in toxic environments. And that's a key too, is that knowing you know, you're getting to make movies, you know, that this is film. It's creative and it should be fun and you should be enjoying it. And toxicity in the workplace will only continue if we don't, you know, step away from it. And that's, I think that's the thing. There's always, when I approached the film industry, when I did, I always heard like, you know, if you mess up, that's it, you're done, you're ruined. If you're late, you're never able to come back from it. I'm not saying be these things, but you know, there was a fear tactic, there was a toxic trait in this expectation, especially being a female Indigenous filmmaker, you know, that I was already fighting so many different things, that I also had to be careful that I wasn't being tokenized. And so I'm balancing so many different things. But I think, you know, Brittany said it, knowing and asking for what you want. It is a little bit intuitive, but that's where the research comes in. That's where having more than one mentor comes in. That's where, you know, knowing that if it's in your gut not feeling right, address it right away. And kindly, be very kind about it. You know, don't ever raise your voice or call people names, because then that's that toxic environment that, you know, is being created, and you don't want to fuel it. You want to step away from it and put it to it, you know, put it over, you know, let it either stop it or just, you know, say I can't be a part of this and I need to walk away from my own mental health. I think that is something that we don't talk about enough. And so I really wish I had known that in the beginning. I'm very fortunate for my journey. I'm very fortunate for my mentors, but definitely that I wish that I knew it was okay to have more than one mentor, and that it was okay to say this isn't serving me and I need to try something different.
I would love to chime in on that. In the art sector in general, whether you're working in organization, whether this is you at 3 a.m. with your laptop and just alone, the arts is a very consuming sector. It will take all of you if you let it. So I would say, going into the sector, practice preventative self-care. Don't wait until you're already burnt out to start scrambling trying to find resources and starting meditation or whatever practices like serve your mental health and your like well-being. Do it preventative. Set boundaries. Take time off. If you don't choose a time to rest, your body or brain will choose it for you, and it'll be at a bad time that doesn't really serve you well. So definitely go into this sector knowing how to take care of yourself, knowing when to set boundaries, knowing when to step back, knowing how to basically take care of your body and your brain. Definitely.
I can jump in here because I really love that answer. And as a young person really trying to figure it out right now in the film industry, where I'm trying out directing and director of photography and producing with other films as well as my own films. So one way that I had to learn to set boundaries is to really be able to communicate with everyone that I'm working with and keep a schedule or a notebook to really look at what you're doing and not to double book yourself, because that's where a lot of problems end up happening. You won't feel good about it, as well as trying to cancel on someone at the last minute or days before. It's just not something that you want to do, especially within the film industry, where everything can sometimes be last minute or prepared for months before the shoot day. So I'd say definitely communicating with everyone you're working with when you're a freelancer and trying to figure out where you want to be and what you want to do. It's the best step, and that's what I'm actually even still learning till today, working with different organizations, is just to know when to say no, when to say yes, and when to let people know what your capacity is too.
Kyle, if you'd like to add to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have been hitting all my points, so I was like, all right, I'll just let you guys talk. Definitely keeping your work life balanced is so key. Getting good sleep, 8 hours, because and going out the night before is probably not the best thing to do when you're on a film set or even working. Wait until the weekend, wait until that Friday, and then you can go out and enjoy yourself, because you will be 10 times less productive if you burn yourself out halfway through the week. There's definitely a stress level that comes with working in the film industry. So having, that kind of level head going into it, and also being very organized. I've found that just being organized and having everything in order can actually make things go a lot smoother, especially as a prop master. Having all my props and things all together and organized in bins and labeled and whatsoever has made can make or break your stress levels on set, because there's also those times when directors or people just ask, or even actors just ask for a thing that wasn't even supposed to be included into this scene, and you can confidently say, yep, I got that in a bin, just give me a minute, I'm just going to run to the truck and get it. And that's it. You grab it, you give it, and everyone has a great time, including yourself. And I've seen just recently on the show I'm on, I saw the prop master on this show collapse on set because of overexhaustion. And he was a close friend of mine, and there's a bunch of friends, we're a bunch of the crew member were friends with him, and we were there to support him and said, dude, you're going home, put your feet up, you're not doing anything for the next 2 days. We got this, we got you, just take care of yourself. It's so important, and it can really scare the production, especially for like the higher up production managers and stuff like that, who are really afraid of like lawsuits and stuff like that. If you're collapsing on set, you're causing way more stress than helping out by pushing yourself that far. So yeah, please just know when to just slow down, turn off your brain, and just enjoy your time off, because when you come back refreshed, you can give it 110% and still have a healthy work life on as well.
Can I just also add to that? Because like I said, I do a lot of indie projects. So that's going to be the other thing, determining which kind of set and job you take. So I work a lot. I've worked a lot where I've had to camp on Haida villages in the middle of the ocean, and we have to learn the tides and be on a fishing boat. And I fell 3 feet from a fishing boat onto a skiff from a prior accident, car accident. Now, you know, that costs WorkSafe BC. I was out for 2 days. I was injured. However, the production manager okayed us to go on a stormy, windy channel, and that wasn't okay. And I think that's the other thing of, like I said, the set safety of, I don't feel safe, I'm not getting on this, I'm not doing this. So, you know, some of the jobs you might take might require you to climb a mountain, or, you know, be in a boat or something like that. So it's knowing when to say, I can do my job, but here are the things I'm not comfortable with, and the communication. And the second thing I want to say is, Kyle mentioned earlier about, you know, you can work contract jobs for so long, get paid quite a bit of money, and then take time off. And I think that's something too to be aware of, is budgeting. We don't talk too much about that, but budgeting yourself as an artist or a filmmaker working in the industry, you might, you know, there might be a boom where you're working 6 months straight, but you don't have to either. You can say, no, I'm not, I'm going to do every other month. I'm going to do every other whatever. Make sure that you're budgeting enough so you can apply that to your self-care, whether that be, I'm going to get a massage every week this month. I'm going to sit and do this. I'm going to go to Niagara Falls, whatever it might be that you need, making sure that you're putting that budget together for yourself so that you're not becoming full of anxiety because, oh no, I don't have the next job and I don't have the money and my rent's not paid, because that affects you going into the next job. It affects you. And I've learned, I've also been a student trying to work at the same time on projects. So yeah, the wearing yourself thin, we don't have to do that. There is a lot of work. There is a lot of work. So just be cautious of that as well.
Yeah, squeaky wheel gets the oil, so to speak. If you're vocal about your concerns, they will see to it, because if it's a concern, they don't want any problems. So they want to make the set go as smoothly as possible. So if you address anything, they'll try and address it. And if they don't, and it's a very big issue, then you know you gotta keep persistent and make sure that the set becomes the safe place you want it to be. Yeah, and yeah, that's that's all I can say, really.
All right. you know, this has been a really, really great discussion. I want to continue the questions that are coming into the chat and also allow the opportunity for attendees to ask their questions. We're just going to take a quick 5-minute break for our speakers. If you need to grab a glass of water or anything, I'm going to have Sophia just pop in and provide some instructions on the RBC survey break. And then we'll continue the questions that everyone has right after this.
This has been like such an incredible discussion. I know that we were like aiming to head into breakout rooms so we could do some more individualized networking, but we're having such a great discussion all together. We do want to give our speakers their promised quick little break if they need to grab a glass of water, bio, whatever it is. But in order to be entered into the draw to win for those $50 gift certificates, we do need to have you complete a survey and send in a screenshot of that survey over to me. So I'm going to post the survey link into the chat. It should be, it should take like no more than 5-ish minutes. And I want to let you know why we're asking you to take this survey. As Kristen indicated earlier today, RBC helps to fund the Aspire program. And so in order to kind of fulfill our obligation to them, we ask that our attendees do complete this survey. Invalid request, oh no. While Kristen figures that out, I'm going to put in the chat my email where you will be sending, apologies, I think I might have copied it down wrong or something like that. So Kristen is gonna pop into the chat the actual survey link. I'm gonna pop into the chat my email where you wanna send a screenshot of that completed survey. And I would also request to everyone, as promised, you do have access to a free LinkedIn Learning license if you're interested in taking advantage of that. This is in thanks to some funding this is thanks to LinkedIn and some funding from the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. So we're really pleased to be able to share this initiative with young, I was going to say young people, but folks of all walks of life, people looking forward to upskilling and retraining and perhaps diving into some learning pathways that might fit into your future TV and film aspirations. So I'm just going to do a call out to Kristen on that survey link. And as she is getting that up and running, complete it all the way, you'll come to the end page and it'll say, thank you for completing the survey. That's what I want a screenshot of. You can shoot that directly over to my email that I've popped into the chat. And please also indicate if you want that access to a LinkedIn Learning license. I know I got some direct messages in the chat. If you could just include it in your email, just so I make sure that you get access to that license. I don't want anybody slipping through the cracks of imperfect technology. If anybody has any questions as you complete the survey, you can definitely direct message myself or Kristen via the Zoom features. And I think I can turn things back over to Kristen. Our speakers have gotten a shakeout. I encourage our participants to drink some water, shake it out as well, and welcome back.
All right, great. For those completing, the survey, thank you so much for doing that. We can still continue the conversation though, as I know there are a couple of questions. Gladys, you had your hand up for a while, so I do want to provide you with the opportunity to ask your questions to our speakers. If you'd like to unmute yourself or type your question into the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So just like to ask a question about how I can get experience or build a portfolio for production or set design.
Um, my best bet would be I got an advice from a production designer on a couple of indies, and what she told me was volunteer, sometimes work for free. I know it's a lot of just as a start, of course, but as a production designer, definitely volunteer yourself for some short films just so you can get your credit, and just you get the credit and you can like accumulate a resume as a production designer. Experience wise, maybe do some research into like different time periods of decor. Because with a production designer, you're kind of overlooking the whole look of the film, especially if it's a period piece. So kind of familiarize yourself with different styles, different time periods of styles, and kind of, yeah, just kind of putting yourself out there, offering your services to independents, because sometimes the credit is what you work for more than the actual pay itself. But definitely when it comes to opportunities where you can get paid, definitely do that. But I myself have taken a number of pay cuts before just because I wanted to have a higher credit position. So yeah, I would definitely, those are a few places to start, I'd say.
How do you look for those opportunities? Do you Google, like for example, prop maker, or do you ask someone, or how do you know where you can get those positions?
Yeah, sometimes it's just like applying for any sort of job. Some of the resources that we provided here in the chat about upcoming independent productions. I'm not sure about finding independents. I think that's more of just like emailing around and seeing sort of, yeah, there you go. Ali just provided a link right there. But yeah, just kind of saying, hey, I'm a new production designer in the industry. I want to show my stuff off. I want to prove to everyone that I've got what it takes. And I would like to apply for the production design position. And it's as simple as that. They'll call you, maybe do a few interviews. Sometimes they'll just flat out say, perfect, yeah, you're hired. We were having trouble finding someone to fill that role. And if you're willing to take the job, then it's all yours. It's something as simple as that, just putting yourself out there and letting people know that you're available and looking for production design work.
Thank you.
I think too, it also goes based on the tier of production. Indie production, there's like student filmmaking, indie productions, you know, MOWs, movie of the weeks, and then getting into the higher unions. So I always encourage people to go online and research your unions, like the DGC, the Directors Guild of Canada, you know, IATSE, and they will have lots of information on how you can get your foot in the door or the type of training you need. That's another thing. Yeah, but student films in indie is pretty much it's you know, checking out the Facebook page and saying, oh, somebody needs a, you know, a day hire, you know, something like that. So
yeah.
And also starting at the bottom doesn't always hurt as well. I know some people want to start at the top, be it the director, be the producer, big dog. But sometimes also just climbing the ladder, being an art assistant or a personal assistant to the production designer, stuff like that, just kind of watching and learning. I've done that a number of times. I've taken lower end positions just so I can watch and learn and see how the other higher up keys do their job and kind of learn from what they do, even asking them questions, because like what we were saying earlier, we love to talk about our jobs and love to talk about ourselves. So just asking them simple questions like that, they would probably have no problem telling you all the tricks of the trade and stuff like that. Because originally there was a lot of like trade secret kind of mentality of it, and that seems to have been slowly pushed to the wayside because no one coming up into the industry knew what was going on, and no one was telling them because they all wanted to keep it to themselves. And so there's been a big push for, you know, a lot more collaboration and sharing experiences and tricks benefit the future generations of filmmakers and film crew.
I think there's also a couple databases of folks working in the film industry that you can sign up for free or for like low cost and get yourself in the database with like a little profile about yourself, the work you do. And that might just be good to get your name out there, get a profile going, be accessible for folks looking through databases like that. The two main ones that I know are hirebipoc.ca and Access Real World. Those are both, I think, more Toronto based, but I think they're both free. Might be a good place to look into.
Also like to kind of go on that too with being entry level or when I at home too have people asking me like, how do I get a chance to do this? It's going back and looking at the skills you already bring to the table and say, okay, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What are, you know, something you're really good at? You know, maybe you're an avid shopper and you love buying. There is a department that just goes out and buys stuff for either set deck, or you could be an office PA that's getting the groceries, you know, like there's different departments in that kind of way too. You know, there's a whole section on COVID safety. So there are people hired to make sure that everything's put into a database, everybody's getting their COVID, you know, testing. So taking some of those, taking the skills you have and applying it. And once you're on set in that job, you might be getting a glance at the camera team and saying, I want to know more about that. I want to, you know, see what that's like. And usually there's a trainee position where you come in and you really get to sit with the camera department, especially in indie world. There's always a room for a trainee. You know, you might be doing a lot of heavy carrying and getting snacks and things like that, but you are going to be hands-on for sure. You are going to learn. And yeah, and especially, you know, I would say gender, like diversity. Yeah, there's a need to raise our numbers in who's in those roles as well. So again, I'm always like, just give it a try, give it a try. There was one other thing. Oh, as a producer and owning a small production company, and I'm learning and emerging, there is something that the Indigenous Screen Office offers, which is if you are Indigenous, you have access to the funds that funnel through that program. And they're not just about filmmaking, even though they're called the Screen Office, they will be offering small grants to help you tell a story on any platform, whether it be TikTok, whether it be, you know, novels, or whatever that's going to be, that's coming. I don't even know how much I'm supposed to talk about it, but just be aware of that. And the Screen Office is in Toronto. But last year they had a solidarity fund, which was a BIPOC fund, and they had money set aside and for development, I think it was for projects and mentorships. So I have successfully mentored 2 emerging Indigenous producers who got to spend time at my company for 6 weeks. And one was almost online because she was pregnant and she works in theater. So she wanted to know a little bit more of the filmmaking side. So there are a lot of those wonderful grants out there. You find a company that's willing to, you know, have you come in and with that, I do say, remember it as a mentorship and to really sit with the person that you're wanting to mentor with and carve out something that's going to work for you. And I know that's how I approach it. I'm not hiring you to be on set and working 12 hours and expecting you to know everything. What I'm doing is saying, okay, what can you offer to the production and how much can I assist you? And it doesn't stop there either. It continues on. You know, it continues on in networking. So successfully, we've had 2 people go through that program that was funded by the ISO, and they were paid at scale. You didn't have to work a second job. You know, I'm just going to give you a number. You know, my mentee was taking home $1,500 a week, and it allowed her to focus on learning this for 6 weeks. And we did a mother music video. You know, she was doing the locations, she was setting a lot of stuff up. So very awesome programs out there, and I think more creators are starting to offer those types of mentorships as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, mother's really great. They're awesome to work with.
All right. I got a question that was submitted a little while ago in the chat. This is actually for Ali. So does Outreach only fund projects and initiatives within the GTA? And are there any other, I guess, like community resources that you can recommend to those who don't live in Toronto or within the GTA region?
Yep. So Outreach, yeah, we only fund projects by and for youth in the city of Toronto. Our funding partner is the Toronto Arts Council. So we're kind of bound by their geographic borders for what we're able to fund. So City of Toronto, Etobicoke, Scarborough, North York. There is funding everywhere in this world, rural, urban, everything like that. You just kind of have to find it. We have a shameless plug for Outreach, but we have an awesome resource on our website. I work at updating it all the time, but it's a grant deadline calendar. And it's not just film and TV. It's basically any grant that I think might be relevant to youth community artists working in this sector. So we pull in deadlines from big funders, from small funders. Anytime anybody shoots me an email with a random opportunity in it, it gets added in there. So grant deadline calendar, there's other grant databases that you can find as well. Grant Connect is the main one. It's paid. There are some free ones for sure out there. Reaching out to funding bodies and asking them straight up. Like my job as a program manager, and people are always like, oh, I don't want to take up your time. And I was like, no, that's literally my whole job. Please take up my time. Call me, ask me questions. It's wild how much you can just find out by Googling. Google the type of funding that you're looking for. So short film funding in Ottawa, and seeing what comes up. And if there's not just a general Ottawa Arts Council, there's a good chance that there's a local artist that has taken the time to compile a resource for you that has just like an awesome clean list. Okay, here's the local ones for 2021 that I found. I think it's in Toronto as well, but there's one, a guy, Indie Film and TV, I think it's called, and he puts together a funding list. So there's definitely lots of funding out there. It just, yeah, about finding it, Googling it, asking around, kind of pieces like that.
I also know some filmmakers who are very open in sharing their templates as well. So if they've already applied and gotten funding for something, they might just send you a template and say, go ahead, maneuver it to work for you. And so they've already set up the work. They've already done the grunt of the work. You just get to put in your story and and most times those people who share those templates will even look over it for you and help you, whether it be a Bible you're creating for a project you're writing or directing or wanting to produce, and even the grants. Like I think give yourself a lot of time too to fill out grants. I was rushing the other day to do 2 BC Arts grants. I'm like, I gotta make the deadline. And it can get stressful, but we did it.
Yeah, definitely give yourself lots of time for grant writing. It always takes twice as long as you think it will. Start early. And like you're going to have to probably submit a budget to every funder. If you're applying for film funding, you say you're applying for 5 different grants, the budget's going to pretty much be the same. Get your budget done, and then you have that to go with. You can submit that to all 5 funders. You're always going to need to do like 100 or 500 word pitch about what your film's about or what your project's about. That's an easy thing to, on downtime, write that out, and you have the content ready so that you don't kind of have to recreate the wheel from scratch every single time you're going to apply for a grant. You can have those kind of materials prepped, your resume looking good, ready to go, cute Canva design, however you want to do it. Definitely recommend kind of prepping ahead and giving yourself lots of time for grants.
Awesome.
And
yeah.
I also just want to say panels like this, jumping on any type of networking panel you can get on, conversations. Like right now, I'm like, okay, I got Brittany, I got Kyle, I got Ellie. I'm going to email all these people and say, hey, Selena, and I'm going to, and then you create that relationship. And now I know when I'm in Toronto and I'm filming something and I need a props master, I might just call Kyle up and say, are you available, or do you know somebody? Can you recommend somebody? And that's the word of mouth chain that happens. And it's like, yes, okay, I can crew up because I've been able to sit in a room with this person and I trust them. And so, yeah, networking is so essential to building your career as well and getting your foot in the door.
Jumping off that, sorry, right again.
Yeah.
Eventbrite and Meetup are two different websites where you can find tons of free, some paid, but mostly free networking opportunities too. I jumped on when I was prepping for this Meetup for a second, just search like Film Toronto. There's so many people looking to connect. So definitely check out, I can pop the links in the chat, but Eventbrite and Meetup to help you network and meet other like-minded folks for sure.
That's really great. I know that networking is something that many people are intimidated to do, especially when you're starting out. We will be sharing contact information from, or at least social media accounts from our speakers here today. So you can follow. We advise you to continue the conversation after this if you're able to, ask any questions. I did get another question in the chat just to see what the industry is going to look like. I think I'll direct this towards Brittany. Many events, especially film festivals and live events, and everything had to basically shift digitally. When it comes to film festivals, like, what do you think the future will hold, especially as things are opening up? Will there still be those in-person type of events for a lot of people to attend? Is it going to be hybrid? Are you sticking to virtual? At least at Hot Dog Cinema.
Well, yeah, actually, this is unsurprisingly a really hotly discussed topics among film festivals and in both Canada and the US and around the world for sure. For just some background info for everyone, at Hot Docs, we pivoted to an online festival. We also have, we basically built our own streaming platform, and which you can access documentaries from our website right now. And then for the festival, we built like a really big comprehensive digital platform. And we made it, that made it available for anyone in Canada to watch our content. So that was actually had this kind of this hidden value of, if you don't have to be in Toronto or to be able to travel to Toronto to attend our festival. And we ended up getting people watching our films from all the way from like Newfoundland to BC. We even had one individual who was streaming from Iqaluit. So that was really, really cool. And I think it showed us that when we are allowed to have a festival in person again, it needs to be like a hybrid festival. We need to continue with this digital aspect so that we can have people from like all across the country able to watch our films, right? And I think that it's going to be better than ever when we come back. Because of that hybrid model, I think people will still be very excited to come to festivals in person. But it's more inclusive of people who don't have the funds to travel or who don't happen to live in the GTA. And then that also goes into opportunities for work within the sector. So this is the first time that when I was starting out in the industry, I actually found myself for a period of time living in the Niagara area. And then when I was looking to move back to Toronto and work in the industry, I found it really difficult because, what a lot of the jobs were paying didn't really allow me to be able to afford to move to Toronto on that kind of pay. And so I was kind of stuck in this weird spot. And I think that now with a lot of, I think when festivals come back, even in person, there will be a digital component. And I think that there will be more opportunities for remote work than there ever have been before in the event industry. So that would be a great way if you don't live in like Toronto or the GTA, whether you live in a smaller community, maybe you live with your parents, it's a good opportunity to do some remote work to build that experience. And by the time you're ready to kind of enter the workforce in person, you might be able to enter at more of a mid-level rather than an entry level. So just for me, myself too, I'm because we're going to be screening our films next year all across Canada, next year I'll be looking to hire some customer support agents from the West Coast, because of the time zone difference. I'll want some customer support people. Instead of making some people from Ontario be up until 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd rather hire some remote customer service agents from BC to sort of help people navigate our website and the box office and any tech issues that they have streaming. So that's just kind of an example of like our festival having a wider reach than ever before, is that I'm looking now to hire people remotely from across Ontario and across the country.
That's really great. I have this one question that was submitted into the chat, and I think I can direct this to all of our panelists. How is the industry for those with disabilities and accommodating youth with chronic illnesses and mobility limitations? Is it easier to share issues outright and be transparent before getting a position, or only share after you get a position?
If I could start with that, just
Yeah.
because I think that, again, I'm speaking to a really different side of things. But just to, go off of what I was just saying, like the opportunity for remote work is and telecommuting is larger than ever before. So if there is like mobility issues, that's a huge opportunity. And I think that in general, the industry is becoming much more like aware of how inaccessible it had been previously. And then to go wider than that, in the film festival, in the events film festival world, there's a lot of those jobs that can be done remotely, or that, when we talk about fundraising, when we talk about programming, those are absolutely jobs that can be done from anywhere under many, many different circumstances, and that can be extremely flexible. They don't, especially programming doesn't really have a timeline per se. There's just sort of a deadline to make your film selections, but it doesn't have to fit into sort of a 9-to-5 workday, and it doesn't have to be done in a specific place and in a specific way. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to things like, again, like programming, fundraising, scheduling, even accounting. And I never even mentioned communications before, because that's another huge one that can be done really flexibly.
On the topic of on-set stuff, definitely if there's a mobility issue, there might be, it might limit yourself. There's definitely like production office positions like that you can work from home remotely, like what was said previously. Definitely the more physically demanding jobs are fairly limited in the sense of if you have a mental disability, I'm pretty sure they're fairly accommodating to that. Especially again, it's whether or not the key would like to hire you or take on the risk or the responsibility of accommodating for any sort of disability. But I've worked with a number of crew members who have certain disabilities and are still thriving and working just fine in the industry. Again, it's a very inclusive industry, and we try to accommodate as much as possible. Definitely, there are some limitations depending on what the whichever the affliction is. But yeah, we usually try our best to make it as accommodating. We just the show I'm on right now, we brought on a person with mental how do you say, he had a developmental issues, and also he was in a wheelchair, and the whole crew was very happy and accommodating for him. He was a great person to be on set. It was only an acting position, but I'm sure that the way we acted and treated him would probably echo to other people as well if it was a crew position as well.
And I always go safety, and I think conversation. I would say, I would not, as a producer, have you disclose any information you're not comfortable disclosing. But if you put that on the table, I think it builds a relationship to say, all right, let's get the right things in place to make sure that this happens, because this person is the right person for the job, that this person is, we vibe with them very well. It's the chemistry as well in terms of what the story is. And so that again is going out and seeking the right support systems. If we don't have them in place, I don't, like I said, I had a mentor or a mentee who actually, I had an actor once tell me that she was pregnant and she was our lead. And there are health risks when you're in your first trimester. That's right, trimester. And so she was very afraid to tell me this because she thought she was going to get fired and recast. And I was like, no. We're going to accommodate how we approach this on set. We're going to change, rewrite the scene. She could only do 3 takes of running. We couldn't ask her to run any. She had to say, I can't run anymore, So being very accommodating, and the same thing on, offset and not an actor position, and all the other roles is just making sure that we can support the individual the best way possible for safety reasons. And that would be, I think that starts right with the communication at the top of the day, the top of the interview.
Ali, Selena, you want to add to that, or?
No, I think everyone has said most of the points, but I did want to chime in and say there's also a huge demand for social media for films right now, where marketing and looking at how to really get out your film, outreach, speaking to media. So if that's also something that you'd be interested, it's definitely working from home when doing that. And sometimes you may also be on set when you're the behind the scenes photographer, for example, or tweeting what's going on during the production or where things are at with the director. So that's a really huge demand for that right now, as a lot of filmmakers, they want to get their films out there, especially indie filmmakers, because the more that your film gets out there, the more funding that you might be able to get the next time you apply, or more people want to work with you. There's more collaboration in that. So I'd also say to consider that too.
Yeah, I think it's always best to be transparent and upfront when you're coming on to a job. Always, just even if you don't want to share it with the whole team, sharing it with like your immediate supervisor or anybody who has kind of a direct bearing on your position is always just kind of the best idea for accommodation, for support, for understanding, empathy, pieces like that. Like, absolutely, I would say disclose, be upfront.
All right, great. This is a really great conversation. This is actually one of the most engaging conversations I think we've had here. Just as we approach 3 o'clock, I do want to take this time to really thank all of our speakers. Just before I do so, I think Kadia's hand just went up. So if you wanna ask your question right now.
Hi, sorry to keep you guys longer, but I didn't get a chance to ask you about what you're talking about before with the lawyers. So I like writing a lot. So if I want to relay like a book for children, let's say, into a film or something like that, how do I go to kind of, or a TV show, how do I go to like a programming station and kind of tell them my idea without having a lawyer? Do I have to lawyer up first, or?
Well, in indie world, like something, I guess I'll go to the web series that we just did. So I had an artist looking for an Indigenous producer, and she had a concept. And so, we had a conversation around that. So you might, with your story, find a producer, somebody that can help guide you into that. But going to the legalities of it, if you don't have a lawyer, the producer will have a lawyer as well. And they may say, you can use my lawyer. However, there's a conflict of interest in that, and they're going to always advocate for their client too, right? So it's like one of those things where if you have lawyer friends or somebody who knows how to read this, even an agent, things like that. But I always look at contracts as, in case something goes wrong. And moving forward with somebody that says, yes, I really like your story, I love the concept, I want to, get funding to put it into a pitch package, a Bible, so that we can go to the broadcasters, go to the networks, and pitch your project. So there's a little bit more work that you have to do before, some people get lucky and say, here's my story, and then they're greenlit, and it's like very rare. But development, you have your pre-development concept, pre-development, development, greenlit, and greenlit is production, and then you're in your post. And a lot of people forget about post in indie world, but they shouldn't. They should be thinking about it right at the beginning. But finding a producer who then you would start an agreement to venture forward, or you would license your story. It's called an option if you're the author of the book. But maybe you also become the writer of the script as well, but you're still going to license that material to the production company. Now, I know there's a little change in the indigenous world where we want to own our own IP, because sometimes our IP is collective, it's stories from our nations, and not one person can own it. So giving it to a non-indigenous producer to do whatever they want with it isn't right. And so we're making these changes within the industry in terms of having indigenous owned production companies, BIPOC owned production companies, that allow for negotiations in your contract to say, the creator that we just did Caranza with, I don't own her IP, but I am licensed to produce her first season. So yes, we have a separate company that produced this, but we made our own negotiations and contracts to say anything that comes in is 50-50, anything we do is 50-50. And at the end of the day, I do not own this story. This is her story. And that's the dialogue we're starting to change. So it's finding the right producer that sees your vision, wants to work with you, wants to collaborate with you, wants to protect you as well. And then it has to feel good to you. And and then making sure that, don't feel uncomfortable about the legalities. Do not feel uncomfortable saying, I'm not moving forward until we sign this. And the negotiations are going to take some time. You're going to go back and forth. You're going to redline. You're going to get people to read it until you're both comfortable. And I think that's the difference between, I think that's the change that's happening, because most big production companies are going to say, great, I'm going to give you 20,000 and you can just sit over there and we're going to take your story and do what we want with it now. It is starting to change. You might be brought into the room, or they're going to put an experienced showrunner. I'm not sure if people are aware of Trickster and everything that went down with the show Trickster. But that was a non-Indigenous showrunner running an Indigenous story. And so things weren't taken care of properly. So I always ask people to be very aware and cautious of, who it is that you're basically getting married when you're signing contracts. So do you want to be married to this person for the next 5 years or whatever that's going to be? And are you going to communicate through that and have those tough conversations and have them right at the top? So I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but this is something I'm very passionate about as a production company, that the artist feels like and has the control of their story and has the control of their IP. And we're there to assist it in a way that is collaborative. We follow protocols, it's respectful, and it's really community based. That's just my production company, and I can speak on that. So yeah, and that's kind of where it is. Don't be afraid of the paperwork. Don't be afraid of the legal. And most lawyers, I have a really great one. He's an Indigenous lawyer in Vancouver, Nate Lyman. If you tell him like, I don't have a budget, I might have $100. He might, what do they call that? Community, I can't remember what it's called. Community pro bono will probably help you, especially if you're emerging, until moving forward you find an agent. But I'll never let my lawyer go. He has, he's so worth it. He is so worth it. And that's like, yeah, that's the one thing, is like, get yourself a good lawyer regardless. But make sure, if you don't have the money to afford one, make sure that you're kind of messaging him with all of your questions at once, because you're going to get charged per email. Stuff like that. So I hope that answered some of your question, or answered the question.
It did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, so we're just a bit over time right now. I'm not sure if our speakers are able, if they have anything else for the rest of the day. I do want to, I do want to thank them for their time. As we wrap up, are there any closing comments, words of advice for anyone who's really interested, to all of our viewers who are interested in getting into this industry? If you can just provide one last bit of context before you pop out of this meeting. And then for our attendees, we'll do the gift card raffle, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. You can go if you want to.
Yeah, I'll just put in a quick plug for if you are at all interested in film festivals or arts events, especially in Toronto. Of all, I'm completely free to answer questions if I can be emailed, or you can follow me on my social media handles. I just want to put in that workinculture.ca is a great website to find opportunities within the arts in Toronto. And also Hot Docs, just a quick plug for that. Hot Docs tends to start hiring in January, February for our festival, which happens in the spring. And then TIFF tends to do most of their hiring in kind of June, July for their festival in September. Those are the two biggest film festivals in Toronto. So if you're looking to get into the film festival world, those are two kind of hiring deadlines to keep an eye out for.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Someone else wants to chime in?
I was just going to say, I guess some advice is to never limit yourself and to believe in things that you want to do. Really look at things that you feel confident in as well, and the things that you aren't so confident in, don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's basically what I've done, and how I feel like I have been able to get so far right now and after graduating from university. And those of you who aren't taking the path of college or university, there are always ways in a way you can look at volunteering, joining a couple of film sets, or even looking at your own ideas and what you want to do and finding grant opportunities for that. And I love that we did talk about budgeting today, because one thing I often hear too is, well, I can't volunteer because I need to make money. And that's such a fair and valid statement. And I think the best way to get around that is to really find like a part-time job, or seeing where you can find an honorarium, or starting your own business in that sense too, and seeing how you can still try to help yourself manage financially, but also being able to be creative too and look at that. And I guess I'll also do shameless plugs. Street Voices is always, we're always accepting volunteers, whether you want to be a writer, a photographer, videographer, or even help us in producing our new content. So far right now we have a podcast, and we're working on interviewing a bunch of artists in the city, kind of doing like an on-the-go video interview with them. So if you're looking at Street Voices as well, feel free to email me, or the link is there too, streetvoices.ca. Or my email is selena@streetvoices.ca too.
Great.
I guess I'll go next. Persevere, keep going, keep applying for jobs, keep writing grants. You're not going to get every job you apply for. You're not going to get every grant that you write an application for. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified, that your work isn't awesome. Just keep going. The art sector is so competitive. There's so many people that want to get into it, which you all understand why it's such an awesome sector to be in. Just keep persevering, keep applying, keep submitting, just keep going. It's easy enough to get discouraged. You get a grant declined. I get grants declined all the time. It happens. You just have to keep applying. So that would be my kind of final message, my final boost there. And then, yep, shameless plug, Artreach. Our grant cycle is open every year from December 1st to February 1st deadline every year. We don't just provide funding for you to make a film or TV show or whatever. Everything has to be programming based. So if any of you guys are looking to run programming to teach youth in your community how to screenwrite, how to make a short film, kind of pieces like that, we fund instructional kind of programming based in your communities in Toronto. Yeah, thank you for having me too today. This was fantastic.
Thank you for being one of our panelists. And I'll leave it to Kyle and Jesse to finish off. Either one of you.
After you, Jess.
I was like, I'll let Kyle go. I always feel like I'm talking too much. I would say some advice is own the space, and I've said it before. Own the space. People are gonna remember your kindness. They're going to remember your if you stroke their ego a little bit. But I think too is like to not be afraid to ask a question. And the power, somebody wrote it in the chat, the power of I don't know, right? And it's like it goes a long way when be accountable for your actions, be respectful, be kind, all the human basic things. And didn't own the space. And whether you're going to be a creative content whether you're going to be an artist creating content, whether you're going to be above the line producing other artists and creatively producing, or you're going to work in a department, all of them are so valuable. You can't do one without the other. And so it's really a place of respect. And, and watch what you say on set, because you never know who's listening. And that there too that's a big one. And another thing, advice that I did this, which I was very thankful for, is your reputation will go a long way. It really will. And being in Vancouver, I've been so fortunate that because of I would like to think because of the relationships I'm building, I have rental houses that are discounting, equipment for me, because they know the type of reputation that, with them that I've made, the relationship I've made with them. I'm just going to show a really quick thing. We once rented a viral van, which is a small, tiny van for a music video over the weekend. Myself and my producing partner couldn't be there. So the key grip, he hired people that were green. They didn't know how to put the van back together. So when they dropped it off, it had no gas and all the equipment was all over the place. And now that's on our production company as well. Even though the rental house said, we know it's not your fault, it's these people working. I said, no, I got to make it better. So I went and bought them gift cards to the keg, and I wrote a story that said I messed up, like saying, sorry, we're so sorry. The fact that we went that extra mile, it made them want to work with us again, because they knew we were going to take care of that particular situation. So I've even called up rental houses and been like, hi, my name is Jessie. I'm a new filmmaker. Do you have time to talk to me for about 10, 15 minutes about who works in your rental house? What are the opportunities? And then who knows, maybe you want to work in a rental house, and then you get to know all the filmmakers. So I got lots of advice. I'll just give you my email. And if you ever have a question, please email me.
I guess I'll send us off. Yeah, everyone's advice was incredible and wonderful, and I don't think I can top any one of them, because they're all unique and near and dear to my heart, and I agree with all of them. But all I can say is come to this industry with an open mind. Don't be afraid to fail. Never come in with a closed mind. Always have an open mind, and be willing to hear new ideas, hear people out, and kind of set yourself aside from the situation from time to time, and really take in what people have to say, and how things are done, because it might be different than what you're used to, and those things can really make you appreciate this wonderful industry, because you learn so many new things and meet so many colorful, wonderful people. And yeah, just keep that positive mindset, coming in with an open mind, and and always have fun, because if it's not fun, then why is it worth doing, right?
Such great advice from each and every one of you. Selena, sorry, I saw that you.
No, sorry, I was just clapping there.
Awesome. I really want to take the time for each and every one of you, not only our speakers, but well, first and foremost, to our speakers for attending and actually leading this conversation here today. A lot of great insights, not just from how to get your career off the ground, but also networking, you know, anything that basically all the advice is something that cannot only be taken in the TV and film industry, but every area of life that you go into. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day. To our attendees, thank you for attending this event. This obviously wouldn't take place if it weren't for you guys, as this is always, we put on these events specifically for you. I will be sharing contact information from our speakers. So if you do have any last minute questions, feel free to get in touch. Also follow on social media. I will be sharing social media accounts for you guys to like and share content as well. For our speakers, I completely understand if you have to go and have a busy schedule, but for our attendees, if we can do the gift card draw for you guys, I'll ask Sophia to hop back on. We got a couple of names here. Thank you for those who have completed the survey. I know it is lengthy, but you'll be you're entered into this raffle to win a $50 gift card.
Are you seeing the wheel of names right now?
We are seeing the
okay.
wheel of names.
Great. So we're doing this live. I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel of fortune. Paolo it is. Congratulations, Paolo. Going to go ahead and remove you from the whatever. Oops. For those attendees who had not yet gotten the opportunity to submit your RBC survey, you do have until 5 p.m. today. We'll be doing our second draw offline just to give that allowance. I know it was a little bit messier than we normally do things today, just with that survey link not working right away. So for those of you who haven't yet submitted, 5 p.m. is your deadline, and we'll be sending out an email notification shortly afterwards, confirming our two winners. Just a last reminder, if you are interested in getting your free access to LinkedIn Learning license, to indicate as such in your email. That initiative is open for all job seekers across the province. So feel free to share that initiative widely if you think you have folks in your space that would benefit from it. With that, back over to Kristen for final things.
Yeah, so just to remind everyone, I will be sending out an email with a link to the survey in case you didn't get a chance to complete it. Also, just sharing. So I know that a couple of people have liked and shared our social media accounts. We're going to share speakers' social media accounts. So definitely feel free to follow and share. Yeah, I'm not sure if any, I don't think there are any more updates for me, but we look forward to seeing you at our future events starting in September. Yes, for the LinkedIn Learning, sorry. I guess you can email Sophia. I'm going to type her email in the chat. I'll also follow up with all attendees today in terms of their LinkedIn Learning access. All right, thank you. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully it is all sunny and no rain, although I know some people do have rain where they are. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Everyone, take care.
Thank you to our speakers, attendees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And yes,
Thank
Jesse,
you.
happy Pride, happy Indigenous Month, and happy Solstice. We got a lot, we got a mouthful going on.
Mhm. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.